In a world where insanity reigns supreme and safety pin manufacturers are running out of metal for the diapers of the leftists, it's comforting to know an ancient, fat, long-haired, bearded reprobate has your mind in mind. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, broadcasting behind enemy lines in occupied California, and despite every attempt by the SHR Media Network to revoke his shameless contract, we return to the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon.
I have come here to chew bubblegum and kick ass, and I'm all out of bubblegum.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome to the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show, live and direct from the SHR Media Studios. You got a belly up to the bar, we've kept your seat, and it's great to see you back. Tonight is Thursday, March 21st, the year of our Lord 2019. It's almost April, which means it's almost tax day. April 14th, April 15th, April 15th. Well, tonight, Dink is going to be your bartender. Tonight he pours with the best of them, and the lava lamp is in fact lighted. You can't see it just over the microphone, right there, right there. That means you can listen and chat at shrmedia.com. You can watch the show on the Redcon Media Facebook page, courtesy of Big Sarge. Thanks, Big Sarge, Redcon 1 Media. You can watch it right there live on the Facebook page. And also on the SHR Media Facebook page and YouTube channel. I got to tell you, we don't water our drinks, just like we don't water our conversation. Politics, religion, crime, culture, economics, race, sex, science, law. We talk about it all here at the Saloon. Nothing is sacred, the speech is free, but the booze is not. All that we ask is that you flush the toilet, jiggle the handle, and don't forget to tip your waitress. Tonight, in the first hour, we're going to have Alan Thomas. Matter of fact, we're going to dial him up here in just a few moments. Kind of like dialing up somebody on the Tucker telephone. That dates. I would guess that 99.9% of the people here in chat and listening right now don't know what the Tucker telephone is. And why was it important that you not be rung up on the Tucker telephone? Oh, thank God no one rang me up on the Tucker telephone. That's funny. I wonder what you'd get if you actually inserted that in your favorite search engine. Honest to God, I really don't know. In the second hour, I've got a very interesting story, some great notations. I am told that Sackhead Sean, once he gets through with dinner, will be visiting me in the second hour. We've got some great happy stories. Some good stuff has actually been occurring recently. And we've got some Second Amendment stories and some other stories, and let's see if I can find it. I happen to find, and I will get to this. Oh, God. Oh, I forgot. I need to read this for a second because this is so stupid. I'm going to read, Alan, if you're listening, I'm going to read this, and then I'm going to call you. Because I've been wanting to read this for like 2 or 3 weeks now. Like I was saying, in the second hour, I will get to a story from Kevin Williamson out of the National Review. And it's an excellent summary of what is happening these days because it's all off the rails. The story is called The Burn It Down Democrats. And I'm sure inherently you already know what that is. But this story is so crazy. When I saw it, it's like, okay, this This guy kind of has to be an award winner for the, is it the Murphy Award? What's the award for crazy, crazy shit? Maybe somebody will tell me. Oh, welcome to Alan Thomas, Iggy Mom, and the Alaskan in chat. It's too bad Kaiser isn't here and Mike isn't here because they missed a great show last night on the Sackheads. Because if you didn't listen, basically what we decided is that, you know what? To be the biggest underminer, so to speak, or confuser, we were thinking, you know what? President Trump for 2020 should go third party. And then we'll watch the mainframes of the Democrats and the Republicans just melt down. In its own way, that would be amusing. I read this story that I'm going to read you right now, and the first thing I thought is, oh, this has to be something from, like, The Onion. And I looked at it a little bit further, and matter of fact, no, it's not. This proves, essentially, that humanity in general is insane. When I was working for a sheriff's department, a 2,000-plus deputy sheriff's department, I was a training officer, and I would pretty much tell my trainees, no matter what it is, no matter how bizarre, how depraved, how evil, how sick, how twisted, how outrageous, how obscene what you just saw is or was, it's been done before by thousands and thousands and thousands of people before them. And you just saw it decades before, even centuries before, with some limitations. This is the headline. KTLA anchor passed away from overdose after inserting crystal meth into his anus. I think I see an initial problem with this, but if you think that's the end of the story, no, that's just the beginning. KTLA anchor Chris Burrus's cause of death has now been confirmed as an overdose after inserting crystal meth into his anus. As reported, Burrus passed away back in December when he was found unresponsive at a motel. But wait, there's more. The blast reports that the L.A. County Medical Examiner states that he died from methamphetamine overdose after he was found in a Glendale hotel. His death has been ruled as accidental. Investigators state that Burrus met a man online at Grindr. That's basically a dating contact app for gays. Everything basically but militant normals, where they set up a date and later met at a motel. And apparently they had had 4 prior interactions before this. Burrus allegedly answered the door, fully naked, when his male partner arrived. The whole room was set up with S&M toys, lubrication jelly, and a massage bench. They allegedly engaged in sexual activity that included anal and oral sex. During the night, Burrus is reported to have inserted a rock of meth into his anus. After taking part in other sexual acts, he is said to have inserted another rock. You would think that after the first one, because, of course, tissues like that, tongue, sphincter, etc., absorb things a little bit more readily. Because, to use a single word there, moist. And perhaps, I guess, for whatever damn reason, this gentleman thought that if one is good and it's not happening fast enough, 2 is better? Apparently so. After taking part in other sexual acts, he's said to have inserted another rock. The other man says that Burrus was fine until he heard Burrus making a grunting noise. He then flipped him onto his back, and he noticed that he had vomited inside his S&M mask. Okay, important safety tip. When you have the ball gag or, your S&M mask, make sure that you haven't eaten anything recently just to avoid a situation like that. That's a safety tip from BZ to you, which I hope that you utilize in the future. So 911 was called, and Burris was transported to a hospital where he was later pronounced dead. Here's the interesting part. Burris he joined KTLA in 2011, and he anchored over the weekends, and he covered news during the weekday mornings. Burris 43 also, for those of you who happen to be in Sacramento, like me, he also anchored Good Day Sacramento and news on CBS 13 in the mid-2000s after stints at KGPE, the CBS affiliate in Fresno, KGET, the NBC affiliate in Bakersfield. He eventually moved on to KTLA in Los Angeles in 2011, where he remained there until his death. Oh, that's what it was, the Darwin Award. I just thought of it. So maybe this guy is going to be a different and unique recipient of some kind of a Darwin Award. Now, I see that Alan Thomas is in chat, and essentially what he's saying is that things are really heating up regarding, that's Simone says, hey, welcome to Simone in chat as well. So let me pull out my piece of technology here and see if I can't find Alan Thomas, and I'll make a little introduction with Alan, and once he's on, I'll let you guys know specifically why I thought that tonight would be a good idea for contacting Alan. One ringy dingy. Okay. Tell you what, Alan, I'm going to hang up here for a second because sometimes Facebook does this to me. Facebook occasionally doesn't let me get through on the first time, so let's try it again. That's just the way that... There we go. See, technology is so weird. Just like I was saying, I tried calling on the first time, and sometimes Facebook requires me to hang up and try again, and then it works. So luckily in this case, it worked for me the second time around. So welcome, Alan Thomas.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you just fine. Alan? Thomas? Okay, Facebook is going to do this to me again. Apparently I can see this. Hey, Alan, if you can hear me, which you may or may not, I'm going to hang up, and I'm going to try you uno mas. And see, the funny thing is, folks, inside baseball a little bit, just before the show, 15 minutes before the show, I called Alan on this very same number. And I'm going to try him again. There we go. Let's try it uno mas one more time. And it worked great. It worked just great. And now when it's...
Hey, BC.
How about this time? Can you hear me now?
There.
Is that it?
Huh.
Yes? No?
It worked a minute ago.
Yeah, it worked when we first tried this thing. I don't know if you can hear me. How about if I try your cell? Can I try your cell?
I can hear myself.
You can't hear me.
I can't hear you. Can you hear me?
I can hear you just
guys?
fine. Okay. Tell you what, Alan, I can hear you just fine. I'm going to try your cell. Your cell may buzz here a little bit. Folks, I'm going to hang up.
Hello?
Yeah, okay.
Are you there?
Okay, I'm going to hang that up. Let's try his cell number. And... Okay. Oh, he's calling, so maybe let's see if this will do it. Alan, how about now? Can you hear me?
I can't hear you, BZ. Wonder what happened.
That is so bizarre. Okay, I'm going to call your cell. I hope you can hear me.
I might have to get out of the chat, maybe. Maybe that's what the problem is. Let me try.
Okay. I'll wait while you get out of chat. Okay. And let's see if that happens. While we're waiting, let me start with an article, like I indicated, by Kevin Williamson. This is from the National Review. We'll get back to the paranormal when we iron things out with Alan Thomas. But I read this today, and it just came out today, and the article is entitled, "The Burn It Down Democrats." Oh, hey, Jan. Welcome to chat. Welcome to 2 viewers that are there. And you know what? There we go. Let's try it one more time. How about now, Alan Thomas?
I still can't hear you. What the heck?
Okay. All right.
Can you hear me?
We're picking you up just fine here.
Hey, now, I can hear you now. What happened?
I don't know. I didn't touch a thing.
Neither did I. Weird.
Okay. But now you got it. Okay. All right. You know what I always say? I always say that nothing succeeds like success. Just as with me in terms of food, nothing exceeds like excess. The reason that I wanted to have you on tonight is because I've been picked up by a new network, the Redcon One Media Network, courtesy of Big Sarge, and I appreciate that. So we have a whole host of people that have never heard you before, don't know who you are, don't know your life story, and I'd like to introduce you to them. So, folks, this is Alan Thomas. Essentially, as some of the promo material indicated, he's a Sasquatch hunter, a researcher, a paranormal UFO, and sort of unexplained investigator. And there's a really salient reason why he went this way. And we'll get to some topics. We'll get to some issues. There's a really interesting article that I want to go over with you, Alan Thomas. But before we get there, your life, what has happened to you in your life, as you've explained before, is predominantly what got you here. So before we go into your background a little bit, first I want to let people know where can you be found on social media, your website, and your show, please.
Everything's really easy. It is the Squatch Zone, as in Sasquatch, Squatch Zone. And if you type that in, it goes to the Patreon, it goes to the YouTube, it goes to my Facebook, everything.
Okay, great.
So really,
one site fits all.
yes.
And now, after having done that, and tell folks about your shows. When you have a show, what are some of the topics that you might discuss?
Well, I kind of made a little mistake when I named the show, because I was coming out of the Paranormal Central, and I thought I was going to just focus on Sasquatch. So I made Squatch Zone. And then I realized, I'm multi-versed in all the fields, anything paranormal, and I should have made it Paranormal Zone or something like that, or the Weird Zone. So really, I can talk about anything, UFOs, aliens, demons. I just came back from a trip where we were searching for petroglyphs, Native American petroglyphs. So, really, I do it all, and I should have named it something like that. But Squatch Zone, and then I just say I go to the Demon Zone, the UFO Zone, and any other zone, the Chat Zone.
Okay, you have a really interesting life, and in the process of, I talked about this the other day, and this is on one hand funny, and on one hand illustrative, and that's this. The first time I had you on the show, and I think you've heard this story before, I've talked about it on the air, I was expecting you to be here, and we'd made prior arrangements, and all of a sudden, you weren't here, and it wasn't just technological. It was I couldn't get in touch with you, and you hadn't called. So for a while initially, and like a good radio person does, and you do, I'm sure, you always have more material than you need in case something like that happens. So I just had to motor on, and so I motored on. But at the end of the show, because it was the first time you were being on the show, in reflection, I started to get a little angry. And I thought, wait, this doesn't bode well for the relationship. And on top of that, was sure I had this all sewn up that you were going to appear. Things were going to be great. I'd spoken to you before on prior occasions, and I couldn't wait to get you on the show. And I thought it was just the weirdest thing that you would stand me up like that.
Right.
And yeah, I was a little miffed. And I thought, no,
Yeah.
wait a minute. Okay, just, it's not worth going there. And I'm glad I took that tack, because I later found out, folks, the reason that Alan wasn't on the show, and you were such a scholar and a squire. You apologized to me for this, which was astounding. But I found out the reason he didn't call is because, he only had a heart attack.
Yeah.
Jesus. Okay, well, all right. I think I understand that now. And then you still apologized to me. That's what kind of guy Alan Thomas is. So, Alan, if I can, give us a little bit about your past, about some of the medical stuff, and the 2 incidents that you'd told us about in the past that kind of set you on a certain path.
Yeah, so we'll start with my medical. Let me start with the personal first.
Okay.
I grew up, a hunter, a fisherman, camper, outdoor. My dad was a sergeant in the sheriff's department here, local, a retired Marine major. And so he was like all about survival and this and that. So we spent days and days and days in the woods. And when I grew up, I had 4 brothers and sisters, or 4 sisters and 1 brother. And then you fast forward into the 80s, and we had 3 children, and then we took on my cousins as foster kids and wound up keeping them. So now I have 6 kids. And then 1 just passed away here, February, I don't know. I think it was the last day of January or something like that.
That was so sad. Our greatest condolences and apologies for that.
Yeah, that kind of messed me up. But then because of going in the woods and hunting and everything like that, I saw a Bigfoot. And I watched it for over an hour, probably close to 2 hours. And I was afraid to go in the woods for about 6 years. I quit hunting. I quit going out hiking. I quit going in the mountains because those aren't supposed to be there. And it was huge. It was a monster.
And that's kind of understandable.
Yeah, it scared the you-know-what out of me. And I mean, even still, I go now, but I'm still scared every single time because I know they're there. And now I know what to look for, and they're everywhere. That's what freaks me out, But then, I didn't get to go out as much as I wanted to because I was a marketing director in a casino, and that was like 14, 15, 16, 18 hours a day, 6, 7 days a week, ridiculous hours. And then one day, they wanted to do an angiogram, and they blocked the artery after they did the angiogram. They said I was fine, see you in 15 years, all this stuff. And then I was back in 8 days losing my leg. And they did a surgery, and I died on the table, and I went somewhere. I went to where we go when we die. We don't die. We go to more life than it's more real than here. It's beautiful. And you travel at the speed of thought. It's so amazing. So, that kind of got the Bigfoot, and then that really got me going into the paranormal central, or the paranormal. And that's when I started looking for people in where I live at that saw a Bigfoot. I thought I was the only one. And I ran into a few people that had seen Bigfoot, and then a few people that hadn't seen one but were looking. And we created this team, and we went out and we investigated, and we found the spot. And the Bigfoot left, he smeared, we had to leave a vehicle in the woods, and he actually left a face print on 2 windows. We got DNA off of it, pictures and videos and audio of them screaming and hollering at us and roaring at us. And then we started a show, or I joined Jeffrey Gonzalez with Paranormal Central, and it took off from there. We opened for Art Bell for 3 years. We were the top show on his Dark Matter Radio. I did Finding Bigfoot. I was on Monsters and Mysteries in America. And then we had a local TV show. We did 3 seasons on the, I can't remember what it was like the Fox and something else, but only then that brought me, then one day we split off, me and Paranormal Central, and then I started the Squatch Zone, because everybody's like, hey, what happened? Where are you? You know, and I felt obligated to get on there, because they're not just listeners, fans, or whatever. They're actually friends. I mean, all my people are friends. I don't see people as like fans and stuff like that. I love everyone, and they're my friends. They've helped me through so many things, and they're there for me and support me, and I try to support them and pray for everyone, and that's where I'm at now.
I met you back in 2008, 9, right around in there, where Sacramento held something called the SAC UFO Con, and you and Jeffrey Gonzalez were there in Paranormal Central. And at the time, that was an extremely complicated set, which you guys had to move all the way from Fresno, which is about a 4-hour drive north, to Sacramento. And so I met you guys there. Jeff was doing the show. I started talking to you. You showed me the show was on your phone right there. And we kind of struck up a friendship right there. And that's how I got to know you. And that's how I got to know what a great guy you are, etc. So that's the background.
And same likewise. You guys are great. You and your wife are the best. And we've been really good friends ever since, too.
Oh, yeah. Well, we recently went to a paranormal conference in the massive boomtown of Jackson, California, and we met there, and you gave some talks and whatnot about the Sasquatch. But your thing is the Sasquatch, but it can be essentially anything paranormal, unexplained, UFOs, sort of that massive gamut like that. Folks, we're talking to Alan Thomas. I'm going to take a break. We're going to be coming back. And when I come back, I'd like to talk to Alan a little bit more about some of the things in the past, one of his injuries. There's a lot of stuff that really informs Alan, which in my opinion makes him a fascinating guy. And the other thing is this. If you ever meet Alan, if you ever have the opportunity to meet Alan, you know how you can initially come into contact with someone and immediately there's just a good vibe that you get from someone, and people make decisions about other persons, honestly, in about the first 30 seconds of an initial contact with someone new. When you first meet Alan, you get what you hear here. He's a great person. He's very honest. He's very kind. I don't think there's a mean or an evil bone in him. And upon meeting him, everyone likes the dude. And again, that's why I like to have Alan here. We're going to take a break, folks. You're listening to me. I'm the Bloviating Zeppelin, live and direct right here out of the SHR Media Studios. And this is the Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show. Don't go anywhere. Please come right back.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Hey, this is Michael Wright.
And I'm Shannon Wright.
Join us for The Right Way with Shannon and Mike, Monday through Thursday from 7 to 9 a.m. right here on SHR Media.
Why are they joining us?
For fun things like sports, politics.
Oh, maybe some news and entertainment?
And all kinds of other things.
Money and recipes and events, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, so join us Monday through Thursday, 7 to 9 a.m. here on shrmedia.com.
From a public locker inside a dilapidated Long Island rail station comes a show designed to piss off liberals using truth, facts, and ridicule. The Lid Radio Show, featuring the conservative voice from the People's Republic of New York, the Lid himself, Jeff Dunitz. Tune in every Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific on the SHR Media Network. Go to shrmedia.com. At Lid Radio, we fight for the truth, justice, and a good kosher T-bone. If you don't listen, Hillary Clinton might sneak into your bedroom in her housecoat late at night and blame you for her election loss. It's the Lid Radio Show with Jeff Dunitz.
Hey girls, Carry Girl Gear is here. More and more women every day are concealed carrying, participating in competitive shooting, and getting firearms training. It's not a boys' club anymore, and we don't have to shop in their stores anymore either. Finally, a cool and unique clothing line just for women. Dope tees and hats for the patriotic concealed carry and 2A girl. So what are you waiting for? Go check out carrygirlgear.com today.
It's your business diva here, Melanie Collette. I am inviting you to a front row seat as I discuss some of the most intriguing details of wealth and finance with today's movers and shakers in the world of business. Listen in and discover financial truths on a global, domestic, and household scale. Uncover topics that will impact your wallet today and in the future. Money Talk with Melanie airs Monday through Friday, 5 p.m. East, 2 p.m. West, right here on SHR Media and High Plains Pundit Talk Radio. You can't afford to miss it.
The new show on the SHR Media Network, Sackheads Against Tyranny. On shrmedia.com. Go there quick like a bunny, 11 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Pacific, every Wednesday. Live and direct on the SHR Media Network. shrmedia.com. Be there.
For 50 years, I've seen the American people blinded by corrupt politicians, a lapdog media, and deceptive Islam. The one thing the elites fear is one man with a cane. I'm Dave Milner. Join me through Spreaker, iTunes, and SoundCloud, through SHR Media and the Western Free Radio Network, for half a century of experienced perspective on political and social issues, weekly on The Unpleasant Blind Guy. And catch me on Jeff Mitchell's EDL Radio on blogtalkradio.com. There's
no surrender, ever.
Because truth is not always pleasant.
Broadcasting behind enemy lines in occupied California, a mere 2 miles from the state capital, the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show can be heard every Tuesday and Thursday night at 8 p.m. Pacific and 11 p.m. Eastern, only on the SHR Media Network. Go to shrmedia.com to listen. You can also watch on the SHR Media Facebook page and the SHR Media YouTube channel. No goldfish were abused in the making of this ad. Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Welcome back, my friends, to the show that never ends. We're all glad you could attend. Come inside, come inside. Welcome back to BZ's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show. You can follow me on Twitter at BZAP, like me and follow me on Facebook, on my Facebook page, I should say, Bloviating Zeppelin. Please friend, follow, and like the SHR Media Facebook page and subscribe to the SHR Media YouTube channel. Click notifications. Give our videos a thumbs up. We got great hosts, great videos, and great shows. I'm also on Redcon 1 Media, courtesy of Big Sarge, so please click like, friend, and follow me there as well. I'm saying this and I'm asking this. Let's rock this media world and move me, if you would, pretty please, out of the category of the best late-night conservatarian talk show you've never heard. Make my dogs, okay? Make my dogs. Make Clyde the Bobcat and Demi the studio cat actually proud of me. Folks, we're talking to Alan Thomas tonight. Thank you, Alan, ever so kindly for being here. I massively appreciate it.
It is always an honor, my friend.
There's one thing that I think people need to know about you, and I hope I'm not speaking out of turn, but I feel compelled to say this because this is part of you, and I need people to understand where it is that you're coming from. I can't think of the name of it, and you're going to tell me, and I know you will do this, but folks, Alan is in constant pain. Chronic pain like you've never felt or experienced before. And that was because of the surgery that he had that some doctors messed up, which resulted in you dying on the table. Not just once, but I think that was twice, was it not?
Yep, twice.
Okay. So
But I only remember once. I guess once you leave until you get slammed back in your body, you stay where you are, I guess. I don't know.
Okay. But I make this mention, and your pain has not been alleviated. Your pain is never alleviated. Some days are better than others. And yet, the reason I mention that is because, folks, when you meet Alan, you would never know it. He doesn't talk about it. He's happy. He's ebullient. That's the kind of person that he is. That is his overall makeup. And so if I hadn't said that, and I feel compelled to mention that, because if you think that he's operating in a world that's absolutely perfect and lovely, he is not. Every day is filled with a massive amount of pain for him. That being said, I've never met a more kind, considerate, and upbeat individual than Alan Thomas. I just had to say that. I just had to say that.
Well, thank you. This thing that I have, it did. That's what when they were taking out the blockage that they put in, the clot, it was a actual collagen plug. It was supposed to stop the bleeding to the leg faster than holding direct pressure for 50 minutes. But they still held the pressure, and that's how they pressed that plug into the artery. But when they were removing it, they actually diced it up, and when they did, they diced up the femoral nerve. But, he said a little over 3 inches or something like that. It was a ridiculous amount. And that screwed up the nervous system. Plus, then you add no blood oxygen in the leg for 8 days. So a lot of stuff was dying, and all those things worked out to what we found out later was, they call it RSD. I guess way back they've known about it since the Civil War. They called it causalgia. And then they changed the name to RSD, which was reflex sympathetic dystrophy. Now they call it CRPS, which is complex regional pain syndrome.
Okay.
It's actually the highest pain known to man, and hardly anything touches it. So it sucks. Like what a lot of people don't know, since you brought up everything like that, is I probably spend more time on my bed than I do walking around and doing stuff. But people don't know that part because they don't see that,
I think that was important that people know, especially, and like I say, the reason I wanted you here tonight is because I'm on the new Redcon One Media Network, and there's a lot of folks that are not familiar with you. The people that listen to me constantly, they know your story, they've been here before, they know that I like to have you on, etc. But I think it needs to be said, and the background needs to be given so that these people have an idea of what you're about, and that they can also access the show in the future, listen to it in podcast, and understand what kind of a guy you are. And I think it helps to make you who you are, good or bad. Operating in the kind of environment that you are, I find your temperament astounding, considering all of that. And I'm sorry, I just had to mention that. Very briefly.
It was a really rough, it took me 5 years. I had to mourn my old life because I couldn't do anything like I did before at all. I mean, total new life, which was limited. But now I push the boundaries on those limitations. And this last week, I went hiking up on a hill. I did not think I could make it to the top. I barely made it to the top. And then I barely made it back down, But I was thrilled, that I did something I thought was impossible. And I'm really thrilled. I just, in fact, loaded the video onto the Squatch Zone. Everyone can go look at actual ancient Indian petroglyphs on the rocks up on a hill that I hiked to get the pictures of.
In terms of the paranormal or UFOs or Sasquatch, are there, other than the hike that you took for the petroglyphs, are there any new events that seem to be occurring generally in the area? Let me back that up with, you're kind of in the Fresno area. And Fresno, California, for those of you not familiar with the left coast or California, Fresno is in the middle of the San Joaquin Valley. The San Joaquin Valley is sort of a part of the breadbasket. There's a lot of farming, a lot of farmers, a lot of crops, etc. And it runs north and south in the middle of California, and it's responsible for growing a ton of food that is exported all across the United States. So it's kind of rural, kind of agrarian. People don't know that much about Fresno. The city itself is expanding and going boom. But for some reason, Fresno seems to be kind of like weird shit central. And I don't know why, or do you? I don't know why. But you're right. I mean, we're they have this thing called the Nevada Triangle or something like that. And we're in that. So we have UFOs and triangles and alien abductions and all kinds of stuff like that. I mean, on a regular basis, I can't even keep up with. And then here in the last, like you were talking about, recent things that have changed the way I look at things. Mm-hmm. Bigfoot is now, or has been, I don't know yet, I'm still investigating, but he is now down in the valley running up and down the river systems, the creeks, the canals. I would bet money that he's running around Sacramento too. Actually, anywhere there's a river or a creek or something running into the valley, I think they live in it. And they're great. They're the hide and seek champion of the world. So they run around at night, and in the day they lay low. But they might be laying low right by a park with a lot of people in it. Would one of those possibilities be because they're finding more food down at the lower elevations? And then I would submit that this time of year, if folks are not aware, California, our snowpack is about 145% of normal.
Right.
We're coming off of the heels of a drought. California is cyclical. Lots of drought. Sometimes we'll have rain and floods. We'll go back to drought, and it just keeps returning. Right now, we're in a really good zone in terms of the snowpack so that we can get some nice water that the state of California, because they don't believe in building dams or reservoirs, will just let piss out to the ocean because we have no sense of water management. That's a story for another day. That having been said, though, are those maybe some of the reasons why we're having more Sasquatch sightings down lower?
Yeah, I actually believe they've been coming down for a long time. I can't prove it yet, But they are, and as we were going out, there was no place for people to report these things, and everybody would laugh at anyone that talked about it until recent times. And I'm finding like the farm laborers and some of the ranchers and stuff like that, they're saying, yeah, they call them boogers and different names. And they're out there. In fact, now we're running into like a wolf man thing and pterodactyls. They're talking about pterodactyls that they see. In fact, the mountain that we just climbed, every year these guys go up there and camp out, and they're there to capture video or pictures of a giant bird, like a phoenix or something like that. But so, I was like, what? A phoenix? But we have the Dogman thing is really weird. This guy, one of my friends saw it, and it was maybe 20 or 30 yards from him. But when it saw that he saw it, it jumped away like Spider-Man in the Spider-Man movie. You know how like exaggeratedly long jumps and on all fours and just leaped away, and 4 leaps was gone. Just really trippy stuff.
You make an interesting point, and I have an article that I'd like to link up to this. You're saying that there are more introductions of strange things. They're becoming a little bit more mainstreamed. I'd like to go over an article and then get your take on it as to what you think. We discovered, for example, in 2017 that the Pentagon released information in papers linking the fact that they were still doing UFO investigations, and they were still paying money to do that. They were still being funded. Then there were some U.S. Navy pilots who caught a UFO on video that you cannot dismiss readily, and that particular pilot was on a lot of news shows. I found an article from theoutline.com, and the headline itself intrigued me just in and of itself. It says, "Belief in aliens could be America's next religion." And I was thinking, okay, what do they mean by that? American Cosmic explores how the once fringe phenomenon of UFOs has taken root among the powerful. And what this means basically is that UFOs are being mainstreamed, and a lot of people are thinking that we have had contact, the aliens have somehow landed, or they're about to. And it says that's a reasonable takeaway when a renowned Harvard astronomer publicly declares without apparent fear of repercussion that he believes an alien spaceship may be orbiting our planet. So behind that tells me, in terms of the Pentagon, the videos that we're seeing, more people are feeling less afraid to come out and say that they've seen certain phenomena. To me, that indicates a kind of mainstreaming of this. Any thoughts or opinions about that, Alan Thomas?
I totally agree. Back 10, 20 years ago, when I would talk about this stuff, people would give me looks and stuff like that and laugh. And nowadays, I have shirts with Bigfoot on it and aliens, and I have stuff on the back of my van. And nowadays, people come up and they start telling me their stories, their ghost stories, their wolf dog man story, Bigfoot stories. It's unreal. In the last 2 months, there's been so many reports, and the people aren't afraid to come out and meet you and talk about it and stuff like that. I'm enjoying it now more than I ever did, just because of how mainstream it is. And the government stuff doesn't hurt it either. It's almost weird and almost supernatural in itself.
There's a network called the Mutual MUFON, M-U-F-O-N, the Mutual UFO Network. And I get stories from them every once in a while. This came out of my neck of the woods. There's a headline that says, "Witness says UFO appeared out of thin air." A California witness at Sacramento reported watching a rectangle-shaped object hovering over nearby buildings, according to testimony in a MUFON case. The witness was driving to get food at 12:30 a.m. on February 21st, 2018. He said, "I was driving down the road when out of nowhere I see this big craft appear over my top left field of view," the witness said. "I don't have time to think. I was almost dumbfounded at what I was looking at. The craft appeared from out of thin air, hovered at the spot above the buildings about 300 feet away or so," and said it had two blue lights that were parallel to each other. The blue lights followed from the front of the craft to the back, and they were on the sides of it. They were very bright, and I saw this craft the second that it appeared. The interesting thing about Sacramento is that there's a strong military, there used to be a very strong military presence in Sacramento. Mather Air Force Base used to be the Air Force's navigator school. That's been decommissioned. McClellan Air Force Base, they used to build wings. They'd remanufacture aircraft there. It has a very serious World War II history, as does Mather. We have the National Guard here, Air National Guard, etc. So there's a big military presence here in Sacramento. Is there some kind of a link, Alan Thomas, between the military and reports of UFOs historically?
I've done a lot of research into this over the years, and I actually believe they're in cahoots. And people might think I'm wacko or whacked out or whatever. But if you look at how fast technology is going, I think they did a trade-off at some point. In fact, if you research it deep enough, you'll find out that there was an agreement of some kind, and the aliens actually broke the agreement. They were only supposed to abduct certain people, and they were so many, and they were abducting way more and way off the list, and so they kind of broke the agreement. But we can't. Their technology is so high, so we can't stop them from doing this. And then there's the guy from Skunk Works. I can't remember his name, Ben something.
Oh, Ben Rich. Ben Rich.
Yeah. And he said, we now have the technology to take ET home. And so where did we get that? We got it from them. But I'm sure they're not giving us everything. It's kind of like us giving stuff to China, stuff like that.
Well, and the Skunk Works, as you mentioned, Ben Rich worked for Kelly Johnson from Lockheed, and Lockheed Martin had the Skunk Works where they created the U-2 initially. Then they also created the YF-12A, which was the precursor to the Blackbird, the SR-71. The SR-71 was an aircraft that even today no one has been able to replicate because it had such amazing performance. Russians, Chinese, it was so expensive, we're not even doing it again, although people think that we have a good Aurora project. But that having been... I'm sorry, go ahead, Alan.
Think about this for a minute. Okay, so we had a space program, right? And we had these shuttles going up and down and everything.
Correct.
And they ended it. And they really didn't replace it with anything. And I mean, it's the same with technology, like jets and things like that. The jets have, like the last was the X-17 or 117.
Oh,
that was like that was the last time that we had something really cool come out.
Oh, the F-117, right.
Yeah, and there hasn't been anything since. And so do you think they stopped? I don't think so. I think they probably could take ET home, but they're not going to tell us,
Well, and it makes you wonder if things like this, I've been reading books about this for quite some time. The other stealth aircraft that we're talking about is the B-2 Spirit that was created by Jack. The initial flying wing was created by Jack Northrop before he perished, and there was an actual flying wing in World War II in the 50s, I should say, post-World War II, which initially was outfitted with props, rear-facing props, and then was upfitted with jet engines, proving that could work. But you see and hear UFO stories like this guy from Sacramento, and it makes me think, is this something the military has, and we got it from other places? Any thoughts on that, Alan Thomas?
I agree with that, and in fact, I encourage people. I've interviewed hundreds of people that seen UFOs, and I hang out with my friends, some friends that, close. They went with me hiking up, or I went with them hiking up that hill,
right, that
were abducted several times, and it's hard to tell, like in the chat, they're talking about folding time and space. Like they can go into different, a multiverse type thing.
Mm-hmm.
So they could be there and then appear and then disappear, and they're not really moving anywhere. They're just stationary, but they're going in between, in different dimensions. And I find, like, the part that everybody really doesn't agree with me about, and I sometimes don't talk about it very much because I get so much flack on it. I really think it's demon, the alien and the dog man and maybe even the Bigfoot. They do these weird disappearing acts and all kinds of what everybody calls woo. And it's not explainable unless you go into quantum physics. It like breaks the laws of what we know as reality. So it's a trippy subject like that.
It's funny you should mention that, because directly in front of my face is an article from livescience.com, and the headline is "More Than One Reality Exists in Quantum Physics. Can two versions of reality exist at the same time? Physicists say they can, at the quantum level, that is. Researchers recently conducted experiments to answer a decades-old theoretical physics question about dueling realities. This tricky thought experiment proposed that two individuals observing the same photon could arrive at different conclusions about that photon's state, and yet both of their observations would be correct. This seems to be a trend. We only got about 2 more minutes left, but this seems to be a trend. Alan Thomas, do you think we are on the cusp of seeing something really open up in the way of the unexplained?
Well, I believe the world and everything that we know is getting ready to change. And okay, you can see it happening already. You can see what's happening in the government. If people follow Q, he's already talking about the fight between dark and light, or evil and good, and saying pray, and you're seeing it in the other countries, things happening in the other countries. The world is in turmoil like never before. And I'm old guy, just turned 60, and I've never seen anything like it in my life or read anything like what we're going through right now, what's happening. And I think it ultimately is going to be some huge, eye-popping reality of this other dimensional stuff popping into our dimension. So yeah, we're in for big changes.
Thanks for being here. I really appreciate it. What I'd like to do, and my purpose in having you here today, Alan Thomas, was to introduce you to the new Redcon 1 network listeners and watchers. Now that you've given your background, I'd like to have you back maybe in the next couple of weeks so that we can really get into a lot of the meat of UFOs, Sasquatches, the paranormal, the unexplained, etc. Because now we've got your background, people have a better understanding of who you are. Now what I'd like to do, like I say, in a couple of weeks, is get you back and then now we can really get into the meat of the matter and tear into what is really happening on the planet right now. Would you be amenable to that, sir?
Oh, yeah, and maybe, we've been talking about going and maybe I could get in the studio with you.
Yeah, you're not that far away. You're not
had
that
some
far away.
luck in fixing my car, so I might be able to drive down there and kill two birds with one stone. Visit a grandson and then hang out with you guys.
That would be absolutely bulbous. We would love the hell out of it. Before we go, tell people where you can be seen and your website and your show, please.
I have the Squatch Zone. And if you want to see me on cable on Finding Bigfoot, it is Sierra Spy, and on Monsters and Mysteries, it's Hellhounds, Evil Gnomes, and Bigfoot Wars is the one I'm in. And also, I did one, but I'm behind the scenes. It was Chasing UFOs. But yeah, the Squatch Zone is me. You can find me there. I just put a really good video up. Hope everybody enjoys it. Hello, everyone at RedCon 1. Good to meet you. Hope we see you again.
Folks, that was Alan Thomas. He's on Twitter at Squatch Zone, SQUATCH Zone. And thank you ever so kindly for being here, sir. We will have you back in a short period of time. If you can't make it up here, that's cool too, because I'm still going to have you over the Facebook phone or the real phone. And by God, we actually got through, despite the fact that we had arranged this about 15 minutes prior to the show. And of course, that's just my luck because I'm such a damn techno-Luddite. Folks, we're going to take a break. We're going to be right back and we're going to start with a news story and go to Happy Stories, and I'm hoping that by that time we might have Sackhead Sean in the studio. Don't go anywhere. Go take a pee break, go to the electric winkle chamber, drink some water, have one of your favorite adult beverages, and please come back.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Hey, this is Michael Wright.
And I'm Shannon Wright.
Join us for The Right Way with Shannon and Mike, Monday through Thursday from 7 to 9 a.m. right here on SHR Media.
Why are they joining us?
For fun things like sports, politics.
Oh, maybe some news and entertainment?
And all kinds of other things.
Money and recipes and events, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, so join us Monday through Thursday, 7 to 9 a.m. here on shrmedia.com.
From a public locker inside a dilapidated Long Island rail station comes a show designed to piss off liberals using truth, facts, and ridicule. The Lid Radio Show, featuring the conservative voice from the People's Republic of New York, the Lid himself, Jeff Dunitz. Tune in every Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific on the SHR Media Network. Go to shrmedia.com. At Lid Radio, we fight for the truth, justice, and a good kosher T-bone. If you don't listen, Hillary Clinton might sneak into your bedroom in her housecoat late at night and blame you for her election loss. It's the Lid Radio Show with Jeff Dunitz.
Hey girls, Carry Girl Gear is here. More and more women every day are concealed carrying, participating in competitive shooting, and getting firearms training. It's not a boys' club anymore, and we don't have to shop in their stores anymore either. Finally, a cool and unique clothing line just for women. Dope tees and hats for the patriotic concealed carry and 2A girl. So what are you waiting for? Go check out carrygirlgear.com today.
It's your business diva here, Melanie Collette. I am inviting you to a front row seat as I discuss some of the most intriguing details of wealth and finance with today's movers and shakers in the world of business. Listen in and discover financial truths on a global, domestic, and household scale. Uncover topics that will impact your wallet today and in the future. Money Talk with Melanie airs Monday through Friday, 5 p.m. East, 2 p.m. West, right here on SHR Media and High Plains Pundit Talk Radio. You can't afford to miss it.
new show on the SHR Media Network, Sackheads Against Tyranny. On shrmedia.com. Go there quick like a bunny, 11 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Pacific, every Wednesday. Live and direct on the SHR Media Network. shrmedia.com. Be there.
For 50 years, I've seen the American people blinded by corrupt politicians, a lapdog media, and deceptive Islam. The one thing the elites fear is one man with a cane. I'm Dave Milner. Join me through Spreaker, iTunes, and SoundCloud, through SHR Media and the Western Free Radio Network, for half a century of experienced perspective on political and social issues, weekly on The Unpleasant Blind Guy. And catch me on Jeff Mitchell's EDL Radio on blogtalkradio.com. There's
no surrender, ever.
Because truth is not always pleasant.
Broadcasting behind enemy lines in occupied California, a mere 2 miles from the state capitol, the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show can be heard every Tuesday and Thursday night at 8 p.m. Pacific and 11 p.m. Eastern, only on the SHR Media Network. Go to shrmedia.com to listen. You can also watch on the SHR Media Facebook page and the SHR Media YouTube channel. No goldfish were abused in the making of this ad. Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome back to the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show. Thanks to Alan Thomas for being here in the first hour. Just thought I should mention a few things about social media. I am on Twitter at BZEP, at BZEP, BZEP. You can follow me there on Twitter. You can like me and follow my Facebook page, Bloviating Zeppelin. You can like me and follow me on my, you can like the SHR Media Facebook page, where some of you may be watching right now. Follow us and like us on the SHR Media Facebook page. And if you wish, subscribe to the SHR Media YouTube channel, where some people may be watching right now. Click notifications. And you'll get an update as to when some of the shows are coming, and that's always nice to do. Give our videos a big thumbs up, if you would, please. We got great hosts, great videos. I'm on Redcon 1 Media, so if you're watching there, please click like, friend, and follow me there as well. And like I indicated, I'm basically the best late-night conservatarian talk show that nobody's ever heard of. I'd like to get into the, I may have heard of him category. You can't see it right here, but Clyde the Bobcat from the Bobcat Saloon. There's actually a Bobcat in the studio, and someday I'll make a video and show him to you. Let's make Clyde proud of old BZ, if you would. And also there's a studio cat, a real cat. Demi is a calico. She's around here somewhere. If your ankles are exposed, she'll swipe at them. That's just the way she is. Anyway, let's let these folks and animals be proud of this. So follow, like us, and enjoy the stuff that we put out. Social media is everything these days. That's a topic for another time. I'm not going to go into that tonight. I have many, many thoughts about that. This is just in. I got this from, AAN, Alternative Announcement Media, or something like that. We know that there have been a lot of things going on very, very recently at Fox. And where people would say that they enjoyed Fox News because that it's an alternative, it appears as though it's not quite as alternative as it used to be. And there have been Fox shed many divisions that were picked up by Disney. Fox movies were picked up by Disney. Now whatever Fox owned in terms of content now belongs to Disney, which is massive, which is huge. And I think the only thing not screwed with are Fox News, Fox Business News, Fox Sports 1, Fox Sports 2, and something else that isn't coming to my brain right now. But there's a little bit of an undercurrent going on. Don't know if this is true, but I'm going to tell you about it anyway, that Sean Hannity may be leaving Fox News. Where he's going, I have not heard, but there are inside sources at Fox News that think that the new CEO, which I think is Lachlan Murdoch, is inclined to push the conservative network in a much less pro-Trump direction. And recent signs suggest that whatever bond there was between the president and Fox is already starting to fray. Trump already criticized the cable news network for suspending, and I would agree, for suspending Judge Jeanine Pirro, her show on the weekend, for telling the truth. Actually, let me go back a little bit. She didn't just tell the truth. All she did was ask a question about Islam, specifically about Ilhan Omar, and she was removed. No one knows if she's coming back yet. He disparaged Fox journalists. Shepard Smith is on noon at the left coast here. I wouldn't give Shepard Smith 2 minutes, 2 seconds. There is a growing tension between the network's opinion hosts and the reporters, along with moves by libertarian. They say he's libertarian-leaning CEO Lachlan Murdoch. I'm not sure that he's a libertarian. And they're thinking, I think even Vanity Fair was suggesting that Hannity may abandon the ship. Rupert Murdoch's older son is named Lachlan Murdoch, and he took over the smaller media company that came out of the Murdoch 71. It was a $71 billion deal to sell the entertainment side of Fox to Disney. And Lachlan hired this person named Hope Hicks, that they're thinking that he's going to nudge the network away from its what people think is a close marriage to Trump. But if you look at the overall perspective of the hosts on Fox, even that is not a fact, shall we say. People are trying to say that Lachlan is a libertarian conservative. I remain unconvinced. People say that in private he's expressed a lot of annoyance at Trump. I would believe that. There's a lot of talk going on in terms of the direction that the network is going to be taking under him, and I think we're seeing the result of that already. So, folks, if you think that Fox is going to continue on the way that it is, or if you've been recently disappointed with some of the directions that Fox has been taking, I think this is you're beginning to understand how some of this is coming around. You can see that in the recent, the contrast is here, for example. Jeanine Pirro was taken off of her show because of the question that she had about Islam, and it wasn't necessarily an observation. So apparently these days to ask a question is oppressive. And at the same time, Fox decided to hire Donna Brazile, who is known and admitted to giving questions to Hillary Clinton during a CNN town hall so that they can throw softballs at her. And not only are they softballs, but they were anticipated softballs. So that's the kind of an individual that Fox has decided that they're going to import into the channel itself. Basically, Donna Brazile is a shot in that direction. I think Fox thinks they have an image problem. There was an advertiser sales event in recent days, and brands complained to Fox News executives about the network's association with Trump. And people in the meeting expressed that information. Fox has said that that's completely false. But one of the other things that we know about Fox, and I think I'm going to try to paraphrase. I heard this on Sean Hannity last night. Essentially what Sean Hannity has said, and it's true, is that the left is attempting to pick off one by one anyone who is truly conservative on Fox News. The aim has not been at, say, Shepard Smith. The aim has not necessarily been at Neil Cavuto or some faceless drone that's on very early in the morning who obviously, as far as I'm concerned, leans left. I can't even think of his name. He's so unimportant to me. But we know for a fact that for quite some time, people have literally been going against the advertisers and trying to suck off the advertisers so that they get Tucker Carlson off the air. And the same has been true for quite some time about Sean Hannity. And now they were successful. People were successful in getting Jeanine Pirro off the show. Fox is beginning to cave. And they're caving in a fashion where we already know, people, that 95% of the media, and people are admitting it in the newsrooms all across the fruited plain, that there's a massive bias in these newsrooms. So the one network that we at one point used to rely upon to give us at least another angle, and tell me specifically what shows on CNN or MSNBC go out of their way to ask people with definite conflicting opinions onto the shows. Like, for example, Tucker Carlson. That's essentially all his show is these days, are people that disagree with him. And even the people that disagree with him, he's had leftists on the show who were insufficiently left for the left, and then they were subsequently skewered by having appeared on his show. I see Fox going in a direction that I think it's going to regret, because if Fox continues on this path, it'll be just another CNN with slightly different graphics, or just another MSNBC with slightly different graphics. And will that be a formula for making news? Will that be a formula for keeping Fox in cash? Time will tell about that. But the direction that it's going these days, I think many of us are very disappointed. You know, the official news, the official statement is that Fox News will continue to provide a platform for a diverse range of voices in its opinion programming and fair and balanced news coverage, as it always has, a Fox executive said. Well, I think what they're embracing now, a platform for a diverse range of voices, indicates the future is Donna Brazil. Enough of this. This is kind of way too depressing for that. There's an article that I hinted at before in the first hour from Kevin Williamson, and I think it summarizes a lot of what you and I have already been thinking, and actually what we know. And this came out today in National Review. And it summarizes, and the reason I'm reading it is because Kevin Williamson wrote basically precisely what I was thinking and did it in a much better fashion than I would have. And the headline is, "The Burn It Down Democrats. Unmediated mass democracy would lead to the serfdom of minority groups in the smallest, poorest states." Now, what does he mean? The Senate, the Electoral College, the First Amendment, the Second Amendment, the Supreme Court, is there a part of our constitutional order that the Democrats have not pledged to destroy? There are some Democrats out there in the sticks, a lot of them, in fact, who simply don't understand the constitutional order. They believe the United States is a democracy, John Adams et al., be damned, and in fact, they often are confused by the frankly anti-democratic features in the American order, because they have been taught theirs is a pseudo-education consisting of buzzwords rather than an actual education, that democratic means good and undemocratic means bad. But the Democrats in Washington are a different story. Elizabeth Warren, Kamala Harris, they went to law school. They understood and they understand the American constitutional order just fine. The point is, they hate it. The American order is complex, and it is much more sophisticated than democracy, which assumes that nothing stands between the individual and the national state except aggregation that might be defined as 50% plus one. That makes right. The American order is based on the idea the United States consists of many different kinds of people in many different kinds of communities, and that each of these has interests that are legitimate even when they conflict with the equally legitimate interests of other communities. The densely populous urban mode of life is not the only mode of life. And the people of the urban areas are not entitled by their greater numbers to dominate their fellow citizens in the less populous rural areas. This is BZ saying right now, hello, Electoral College. The basic units of the United States are, as the name suggests, the several states. The states created the federal government, not the other way around. The states are not administrative subdivisions of the federal government, which is their instrument, not their master. In this, the United States is fundamentally different from countries such as the United Kingdom and Japan, which have unitary national governments, under which provincial distinctions are largely irrelevant. In our system, the states matter. Under the Democrats' vision, some states matter. California, Texas, Florida, New York, Pennsylvania, Illinois, Ohio, which, without the institutions of federalism, have among them the numbers and the power to effectively dominate the rest of the country. At the time of the founding, the people of the smaller states did not desire to enter into a union in which they and other interests would be dominated by the larger ones. The people of the smaller states still do not wish to be politically dominated by the larger ones. For that reason, the interests of the states as such, not mere aggregates of voters, are taken into consideration. The Senate, as originally organized, existed to preserve the interests of the states as such against the opportunism and predation of the more populous House of Representatives. 50 senators, 435 representatives. And against the ambitions of the executive, too. Turning the Senate into an inflated version of the House was one of the progressives' first great victories against the Constitution of the United States, and an important step towards the sort of mass democracy that our constitutional order is explicitly designed to prevent. But the states have other protections as well, one of which is the Electoral College, which helps to ensure that the president, the founders, were right to fear presidential ambition is not a mere tribune of the plebs, and that the president is not a rider upon the beast with many heads, empowered by the mob at his back to abuse and dominate members of minority groups, the smaller states, religious minorities, political minorities, etc. The rights of minorities are further protected from democracy by the Constitution's limitations on the power of the federal government, and specifically by the Bill of Rights, which places some considerations above democracy: freedom of speech, freedom of religion, freedom of the press, the right to keep and bear arms, the right to security in one's home and papers, etc. One of the main constitutional functions of the Supreme Court is to see to it that the federal government does not violate the Bill of Rights, even when we, the people, demand that it does, especially then. Actually, rights that enjoyed wide popular support require very little constitutional protection. It's the unpopular rights that require protection. As an aside, BZ says, oh, you mean like the First Amendment? Of course, there were blemishes and oversights. Even the enlightened minds of the 18th century were hostages of their time, and the interests of African Americans and women were not taken into consideration. Those defects were corrected. partly by the shedding of blood, but to a great extent by constitutional amendments that abolished slavery, enfranchised women, and brought the American people at large more fully into the constitutional system. The preamble to the Constitution describes, quote, a more perfect union, which is not the same thing as a perfect union. The genius of leaders such as Susan B. Anthony and the Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. was that their calls to radical change ran against the grain of American society at their time, but they were perfectly in tune with the American idea and the principles of the American order. The Democrats' calls to radical change in 2019 are precisely the opposite. They're very much in keeping with the transient passions of the time, but fundamentally opposed to the American constitutional system. The Electoral College ensures that the citizens in the less popular states are not reduced to serfdom by the greater numbers and greater wealth of the people in the more populous states. This balancing of minority rights with democratic processes is a fundamental part of the American order. Properly understood, the value of the plebiscite, a word I can't pronounce, the plebiscites, the plebiscitic democracy is not substantive. Majorities are at least as likely to be wicked and oppressive as virtuous and just, but purely procedural. And the Electoral College is the instrument by which that principle is applied to the election of presidents. The Democrats' desire to abolish the Electoral College for purely self-interested reasons of partisanship. They think that there would be more Democratic presidents than unmediated mass democracy. Stop here just for a second. I did a little investigation. I talked about it on Tuesday on the show. Why must the Electoral College be overturned? In how many elections did the Electoral College make a massive difference in who was found to be president? The Electoral College essentially made the president in 5 races. 5. Let's see, we're on President 45 right now. Oh, that means that 40 other presidents were unmolested essentially by or infringed upon in some fashion by the Electoral College. What the Democrats and leftists and the American media maggots hate is the fact that it was to the benefit of George Bush in 2000 and to Donald John Trump, the guy with a dead orange cat on his head, in 2016. Prior to that, it was 100 years before the 3 remaining presidents that won under the Electoral College were even in consideration. So you have to look at, okay, why are they objecting to this? Is there a massive frequency that demands that we get involved in this? And the answer is fuck no. But they objected to Bush, and now the extreme objection is to Trump. That's why they're pissing in the punch bowl right now. They believe that there would be more Democratic presidents under an unmediated mass democracy. The First Amendment ensures that all Americans have the right to engage in political speech. Democrats wish to put political speech under heavy regulation so that the people holding political power set the rules under which they may be criticized and debated. The Democrats have attempted to gut the First Amendment under the guise of campaign finance regulation, as though the right of free speech could be separated from the means of speech. It's worth bearing in mind that Democrats' latest attack on the First Amendment was occasioned by the desire of a political activist group to show a film critical of Hillary Rodham Clinton in the run-up to the presidential election, a film whose circulation the Democrats sought to prohibit as a campaign finance matter. Roll with me on this, folks. Please roll with me, because this guy is about to make the point. The Supreme Court stepped in to stop that, finding the First Amendment means what it says, and now the Democrats propose to corrupt the Supreme Court, expanding the number of justices from 9 to whatever it takes for a future Democratic president to create a majority of Democratic partisans on the court. Make no mistake, that's the point of this. They're counting on the same court-packing scheme to give them the power to effectively repeal the Second Amendment without having to bother to propose and ratify a constitutional amendment, a political fight that the Democrats would surely lose. What the Democrats are proposing, abolishing the constitutional protections afforded to smaller states and political minorities, perverting the Supreme Court, gutting the Bill of Rights, amounts in sum to a revolution, replacing our government with a government of a very, very different character and structure. They're doing this because the Constitution prevents them from achieving their immediate short-term political goals. And we should be clear about what those immediate political goals actually are. Muzzling their political opponents and those with unpopular political views, disarming the citizenry, stripping minority groups of political power, and rigging the political system in favor of their own constituents. They would, if given the power, burn down the American constitutional order and replace it with something closer to ordinary mob rule. Plain and unapologetic okiocracy. That's what it's called. The United States is not drifting into fascism or socialism. It is drifting into anarchy. That's quite a fit to throw over Mrs. Clinton being denied her tiara. That's the point. The Republican Party likes to position itself as the defender of the Constitution, but with a few exceptions, Senator Ben Sasse prominent among them, Republicans in elected office demonstrate very little appreciation for the actual stakes on the political table. For the moment, they're concerned with defending the Trump administration, which, whatever you think of it, is a short-term concern, than with defending something that is far more important, far more precious, and in all likelihood impossible to replace. If 2016 taught us anything, it's that the Jeffersons and Madisons of this generation apparently are otherwise occupied, that our political leadership is for the time diminished, and that the institutions the Democrats propose to incinerate could not be rebuilt by contemporary Americans any more than the modern Iraqis could successfully revive the Code of Hammurabi. With some exceptions, I agree with that. A great deal of it. And they are, in fact, the burn-it-down Democrats. Now, if I were smart and if I had a producer, what I would do right now is essentially play a Prager University video of the Electoral College to let you understand how the Electoral College works, why the Electoral College works, and why it's important. And people have said it for quite some time. Look, a handful of states, if the Democrats get their way, could determine the future of the entire United States. And if you're not in high population, high density, what I call urban rat cages, like New York, San Francisco, California, Atlanta, Detroit, Chicago, because we all know what great examples of leftist rule those are, but those under a purely democratic society where there is no electoral college and, in fact, you would get mob rule, everyone and anyone not living essentially in those cities can go straight to fucking hell as far as they're concerned. And that what that could potentially lead to is a series of novels by Kurt Schlichter where one half of the country decides it's going to go red and another half of the country decides that it's going to go blue. And in that situation, let me ask you, which of the two sides do you think would be more successful? more successful in terms of budget, more successful in terms of freedoms, liberties, etc. Stop. Let me ask you a question. And obviously I've gone beyond my bottom of the hour break, but I was on a roll. But answer this question. You can do it in chat, or you can answer in your head. When was the last time that leftists or Democrats provided you with more freedoms instead of fewer freedoms? I'll let you cogitate about that just for a second. Under what law, what bill, what act did you receive a greater amount of freedom than a lesser amount of freedom? And quite frankly, I'll be honest, I can't think of any. That having been said, I think probably this would be an excellent time for...
It's time for happy stories and good times.
Here's a great story. This just came out today. Trump says U.S. should recognize Israeli sovereignty over the disputed Golan Heights. I think that is a great, significant thing that occurred here recently. Hey, wait a minute. Let's do this. If I can get it to work. There we go. Somebody else is in the studio these days.
How do I look?
You look great.
No, I mean on camera. I can't see.
Oh, you look great. What was I going to say? You look bad?
Oh,
no,
well,
I wasn't
maybe.
going to say that. Anyway, welcome to Sackhead Sean.
Thank you, sir.
How have you been? Okay, I had to say that. Yeah. I'm not going to say it, but I was just throwing that out there because that's sort of the nice thing to do.
Well, you know what? I have a pulse, a blood pressure, and there's air going in and out of my lungs. So
yep. I think that was a good story. The president saying that he was endorsing Golan Heights, going over to Israel. We didn't talk about this yesterday on the Chat Show, and I didn't bring it up Tuesday because I don't think it was out yet, this article. I put this under a happy story, and I'd like to get you into the mix here.
Of course.
This is from thesentinel.net. And when I first read this, my first thought was, okay, this is another one of those stories where I got to go to the Onion, or I got to go to another another website to see if this is really true.
What?
But it turns out, yeah, it is. Missouri Senate bans all federal gun control laws in a proposed bill.
Amen.
So,
I mean,
we have a pretty good idea what will probably happen.
Yes.
Because of that. The intent was interesting.
Yes.
Here's the first paragraph. Missouri may just have made the most monumental step towards freedom and individual liberty since the signing of the Bill of Rights. In an upcoming vote by Missouri's state Senate, the state is expected to pass a bill that would nullify all federal gun laws and regulations and make enforcement of those laws by federal officers within the state of Missouri a criminal offense.
When was that written?
That's from the 19th.
Wow. So I know they proposed something like this before, and I know it didn't go anywhere, but they're proposing it again. Look, we're starting to run into this interesting place in life.
But I know where it's coming from. It's coming from the sanctuary laws that we're seeing, where cities are declaring themselves to be sanctuary cities, states are declaring themselves to be sanctuary states.
Yep.
And now people are beginning to ask the question,
well, if they're exempt from federal law for that.
Yeah, fuck it. What laws what laws am I going to decide now? It's like a column, a menu at a Chinese theater. I'll obey this law from column 1, a couple of these laws from column 2, and that's it.
Yeah. Well, it's definitely an FU to those states. There's definitely, a little bit of the individual liberty push. They know it's not going to pass, but it's a symbolic gesture of, look, the federal government's overstepping its bounds. Other states are ignoring where they shouldn't on what the federal government requires. It amazes me with states that pick and choose what laws federally they want to follow and what laws they don't. And it's almost like there was a war that happened a long time ago over such things.
Similar. It's ringing some kind of bell.
Some sort of bell. And the scary part is it's not a stretch to see why they're going there. And yeah, they know the bill's not going to pass, but for them to put it forth and say, you know what? Let's see what happens. Now, let's say it did pass. How? It would obviously, the lawsuit would come right away.
Oh, immediately.
It would hit an appellate court.
Oh, boy.
The appellate court would probably strike it down, or push it up to the Supreme Court. Well, right now, you have a Supreme Court who, by and large, will probably pass it or accept it and uphold it, I should say. It's never going to pass. They know it's never going to pass. But I just want you to think about the simple fact that there are states that are pushing laws like this as a giant FU, money, time, all this other stuff, to sanctuary laws and other, and in some ways, some overstep from government too. Overstep from the feds of, hey, we don't have to follow it. I think it's Montana that you can make guns. Montana is one of the states that you can make guns in Montana that can't leave the state of Montana.
Oh, right. You can make something with a receiver with no numbers, for example.
Right. Or, and I don't know what the specific laws are, but they definitely have, I think it's Montana, Nebraska, I'm not 100% sure. But they have law in the book that essentially says, hey, you can make these types of guns this way that aren't federally compliant, but as long as you're not leaving the state, you're fine.
And the 10th Amendment says the states should be able to have those rights linked inexorably with the article that I just read to everybody here. The other thing we're discovering is that more individual...
Oh, that old son of a bitch, Dan Butch, is in the chat room. Go ahead.
Yeah. Did you see what Dan said?
Oh, yeah. No. I absolutely did.
Okay.
If you wonder why you have long waits in a waiting room for a hospital, it's because of people like Dan Butcher. But go ahead.
Okay. That's an inside joke that I fully understood. And Dan, are you laughing right now?
Oh, yes.
I don't know. Okay.
That's why I actually have my phone up and my text messages open to Dan anyhow, because I know it's coming.
The flood is about to appear.
Yeah, but I thought about that when I was waiting almost an hour to be seen last night in the ER.
It's an interesting point insofar as what we're discovering is that mostly sheriffs, not necessarily chiefs of police, but mostly sheriffs,
saying they're not going to enforce.
Are saying essentially that in terms of the state where they are,
yes,
they're not going to be enforcing state firearms regulations that have just recently passed or are about to pass. And
yes.
I find that very interesting.
Well, and
because... for the filibuster, the Democrats opened the door and people walked through.
Yep.
Ran through. For sanctuary, for the abrogation of laws, the Democrats and leftists opened up the door. You shouldn't be fucking surprised when other people take that idea and run
first?
With it.
Who went nuclear first?
Exactly.
What's funny is when you're talking about these local law enforcement, and like you said, majority of sheriffs not enforcing these state and local laws. Well, here's the difference. And sheriffs are elected.
Yes.
I'm sure there may be one or two places that they're not. I don't know every single district and county. But by and large, sheriffs are elected. They are elected. They're also law enforcement officers. They also swear to uphold and defend the Constitution.
They're old school like that.
Well, and that's the difference. Is a lot of them are, and it is a contrast to other elected officials who just do whatever the fuck they feel like, AOC and all those people, versus somebody who says, no, we can't do that because it's not constitutional. It's not even a conversation to be had.
Or the various the chiefs of police who find themselves answering to a mayor, to a city council, and they're not answerable to anybody else.
Right.
Because it's the city council and the mayor that hired, or the city manager, whatever bureaucracy does that sort of thing in a city environment, as opposed, like you indicate, to a sheriff who answers to the people who elected him or her.
I think every city that has a police chief, before you can even consider firing them, unless it's a criminal offense, you can have a couple caveats in there, right? But by and large, before they are allowed to even move to fire, they should get a vote of confidence or no confidence from the body within that department.
Gee, you wouldn't be thinking about the current department around here.
Oh, yeah, Sacramento Police, yeah. You watched, I seen Sacramento a lot, and you watched a lot of other cities and departments. How many police chiefs change when they get through the door, especially when they're kind of the first-time chiefs, and they think they know what it's going to be when they get in there, and then it's not. And I will give the Sacramento Police leadership credit over the last few weeks in the sense of they've done a lot of things against the mayor and city council. If you watch the city council, we're talking about, of course, the Stephon Clark issue with the protest, the arrests, the 85 arrests. But then, what was it, last Tuesday or Wednesday, there was a city council meeting, and the city council or the mayor was like, hey, somebody was being disruptive. We want him gone. And whoever the officer in charge was says, no, we haven't given him enough notifications yet. And he hasn't crossed the line where he's arrestable, so we're not doing anything.
Well, that seems to be a regulation and a rule that they started themselves. Hoisting people on the petard of their own creation. How bizarre is that?
But, I think if you go down that road where you're like, all right, if you commit a crime, if you do this, there's a couple of things we don't need to vote on. But as far as a leadership thing or the new mayor not liking the new police chief or the old police chief or whatever, first step's a vote of no confidence. If you can't get a vote of no confidence, that means the people who are working for him are okay. Now, obviously, if you have a department that's completely corrupt, that's a different animal. You start looking at investigations, this, that, and the other thing. I'm talking about a regular functional department. How many commissioners or police chiefs that you see come into these bigger cities that actually do a pretty damn good job, and then they're out as soon as the new mayor shows up because the new mayor's like, no, you're an asshole, and you're more aggressive than I like. Or maybe you're not aggressive enough that I like. And, before you get to that firing thing, you have to give these police chiefs a little bit more protection because then they'll be more likely to stand up, like the sheriffs have.
This is very interesting because now I've pulled up the article from the San Francisco Chronicle that I'll get to in a second.
Oh, yay.
Because people need to know that this is a thing.
It is a thing.
In California.
And a lot of other places.
I'm just aware of California. I didn't know that it was starting to run across the rest of the states. But
is it a new topic? I thought we were talking about the police chiefs and et cetera.
Oh, no.
Oh, I apologize.
We are still talking about the police chiefs, but we had mentioned earlier that, because of politics, and we know that police chiefs are much more political.
Have to be.
Because of the appointments, and sheriffs are not so political. And at least in the state of California, look, leftists, they don't just have a super majority, 2 miles that way at 10th and L. They have a fucking mega majority.
Yeah.
Where the Republicans can hop up and down on one leg and object, and the Democrats don't give a crap. They're just going to ram it up the ass of the Republicans anyway, because they can.
Yep. If you're a Republican in the California House or Senate right now, you might as well not even show up to work.
No. And can you imagine working in an environment like that? I can't.
No.
Okay, so here's an article, because this is what California wants to do. Here's an article from the San Francisco Chronicle. It's by John Matthews. It says, time to get rid of sheriffs in California.
Yes.
Stop. Second, Sean.
Yes.
Why would anyone advocate for removing the sheriffs from the 58 counties in California? See, the cool thing is Obama knows that there are 58 states. Coincidentally, there are 58 counties in the state of California.
Oh, it's simple. Is because they're elected and they're beholden only to the people that elect them versus being appointed where you can hire and fire by a political crony. Exactly.
Thank you. So this article continues. And folks, this is a thing here in California. The county sheriff is the problem child among California elected officials. No office is less accountable or more reliable in producing scandal bullshit.
Yes.
There was a statement, a thing, when I first got hired. And it was between the Sacramento Police Department and the Sacramento Sheriff's Department in terms of scandals. And the scandals was, the saying was, if somebody beat them up, it was the Sheriff's Department. If somebody fucked them on the hood of a squad car or in the back seat of a squad car, it was SAC PD. So, scandals? I don't think so. Once elected, sheriffs in all 58 counties have power over jails and policing because that's in the California Constitution, by the way. So if your objection is with that, change the Constitution. But they say they pretty much act as they please. Under our state structure, a sheriff in California can't really be fired. Okay.
He can be recalled.
You can be recalled.
Yeah, that's
like
the
we
people
did,
firing you.
Like we did with a governor around
It's
here.
not unheard of.
So that's possible. But if you don't like what they're doing, you don't have to elect them.
Right.
Next time around. Funny how that works out.
Well, and I keep saying this. We talked about this at lunch the other day. The caveat in Sacramento County. On the federal level, when it's 3,000 miles away and the people here are like, oh, this is a good feeling, a good emotion. I want to send Ami Barrett because I think he'll help, blah, 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 blah. They put him on a plane on a federal level, send him out the door, and then they turn the page and they go, Sheriff, I don't want shitbags living near me, and they go for Jones.
Yes. That's
because
what we said.
Conservative sheriffs are overwhelmingly winning in Sacramento County and all up and down the state for the most part. There's a few exceptions, but for the most part, every sheriff in the state of California, I think probably less 6, are conservatives.
We had, and I pointed this out at lunch, we had a very fine example of this probably 15 years ago, maybe even 20 years ago. The Sacramento City and County were considering a merge, and there was an organization called LAFCO that was pushing to merge both the city and the county so that they could streamline response, that kind of thing.
Which has worked in some places.
Which has worked in some
Yes.
places. By the way, people don't know, the city of San Francisco is also the county of San Francisco. So that is one example of that already occurring. And kind of creates a little bit of an issue. And
they still have a sheriff's department.
And they still have a sheriff's department, but they're very limited. They're in charge of courts, waterways, and jails.
Yep.
And that's it. But the interesting thing is that the only reason that the state of California wants to do this is because they do not have the control over the sheriffs.
Constitutionally, you can't do anything about it.
That they do over the police departments.
Yes.
And we're witness to this all up and down the state of California day after day.
But in our back door the most. You know, I look, I've talked to people who said that Han back in the day was a cop's cop. And now the chief in Sacramento is a complete politician. He does whatever Steinberg says.
Who is our mayor?
They've pushed back a little bit here and there. But how many times have they gone after Jones over the last 8 years over the stupidest things, and they can't get anywhere with him because they don't have the authority to do it because he's not doing anything wrong. He's just doing it in a way they don't like.
That's true. And back to LAFCO for a second. The measure to merge the city and county law enforcement failed, and it failed miserably. And the reason that it failed was this.
The city would not control it.
The city would no longer have control. Generally, it would be the sheriff that would have control. The interesting point about this is the people in the city of Sacramento voted for it and wanted it desperately. The citizens in the county who were served by the sheriff didn't want it because essentially they didn't want that city of Sacramento bullshit seeping across the border into the county because they historically had seen what's the city of Sacramento had been doing.
And look, I mean, you can point to other places that it's worked. I mean, you look at Las Vegas. Vegas, it works.
Is a metro. Yep. It's a metro police department.
St. Louis, not St. Louis. Is it Nashville that's metro or
any other out of the state? I'm not sure of.
But there's some other ones that are
there
metro
probably
too.
are.
And the metro idea, and Dan Butcher said this: progressives want to remove the sheriffs and start making essentially control police force. Absolutely, I agree with that. The difference is if you do a metro department, but you do the head, you can call him a chief, sheriff, I don't care, rear admiral, and you make him electable.
Las Vegas Metropolitan, the head is a sheriff.
Yep. You can metro all over the place. And I can remember even when I was back in the East Coast hearing people talking about, doing metro departments. Because you do. Look, who it benefits is a lot of small departments that don't have the resources that a lot of other departments do.
Then they get access to that.
And so you have a city that's, a medium-sized 80,000 people city, and then like 12 cities around it that are bedroom communities that don't have that access to a lot of law enforcement, or if there's an incident, they're waiting for all of these different things. So it makes sense if you protect that person who's in charge of it and you make them not politically corruptible. But by and large, that is the problem with all of our politicians in this country. They politically corrupt themselves, and instead of anybody recalling them or unseating them, you have people who've been there for 40 years. I mean,
and you can't blow them out with a claymore.
How long was Charlie Rangel in there, no matter how many issues he's had?
Yeah, Charlie Rangel.
People like that. What's his face? Bird.
Robert Byrd.
Robert Byrd was another one.
Robert Byrd
that
was
guy
in there for...
should have been thrown out in his ass 30 years earlier.
Oh, hell yes.
When everything started to come to the surface about who he was. Didn't do anything about it. And that's the problem, is Democrats know when it comes time to move on something like that. The conservatives who understand voting, understand the Constitution, understand
yes,
how everything works, are going to show up and vote, and Democrats are going to stay home because they do not understand how. Which brings us back to the Electoral College that you were talking about before the break, and I know we only have a couple minutes left.
Next Tuesday, somehow I'm going to get to that PragerU video. It's an excellent
It is an excellent video. I watched it
and
recently.
I know you've seen it.
But, the Electoral College is plain and simple. It allows, after a censorship, we draw the lines. It allows equal representation from states despite population. That's it. That's what it comes down to. Now, how those lines are drawn are on the census, which is why a lot of people are saying, well, we need to have citizenship proof before you can take the census.
Oh, no.
Democrats are fighting that. You know why? Because in California alone, I think the number was 16 electoral votes.
Can you imagine?
That would disappear. Like, it was some obscene number.
It's a massive, massive fucking suck, a power drain of unimaginable proportions.
Even though the illegals, quote unquote, can't vote, the party lines, the district lines are made and counted off their population, and the electoral votes are issued, made, and counted off them living there. Whether they're legal or not legal does not matter. So why do you think they want to get rid of the Electoral College? Because they don't want equal representation. Remember the flyover states. They're just flyover states.
Well, and the article specifically gave two words that I think are completely applicable. Mob rule.
Yeah.
That's what a democracy is.
You work everyone up into a fervor.
You got 100 people. 51 people vote for, you have to put a gun to your head. 49 people say that's really stupid. The law of the land is fill in the blank.
Well, and here's the other issue, too. We know when we lost in the 19th, when the direct election of senators started, it was another mob rule approach, right? Because you're now taking the appointment away from the state and you're putting it in the hands of the voters in that state to represent that state. But that's not what it was designed to be. Those two senators were supposed to identify and only represent state rights, and they were appointed by the state government. Now, in most states, that won't change if they're conservative or not, by and large. But what happens is, say you get rid of the Electoral College, you now have, like you said, a major city, and I'll use the example of Massachusetts, and I'll use Boston. You have a city like Boston that's very densely populated. They have a lot of votes that come out of there. But the rest of Massachusetts is pretty rural. You have down the Cape, you have out west. Yeah, you have Worcester and you have Springfield, and they're bigger cities, and there's a couple smaller little metro. But they would start now deciding, the city of Boston, rules, and California should know about this more than anyone else, rules that would affect people out in the western half of the state would be done by people that have no idea about farming and all this other stuff, which is why California wanted to split up. You start taking the representation.
Yes, that's exactly why.
The representation of the common man who's 2,000 or 200 miles away from the state government or 2,000 miles away from the local government and has a farm or whatever business is no longer applicable because the Antifa morons that are running around and doing all this other shit paid people to vote, put them on buses. This is all proof. We've all know this has happened, and got them to the polls. We know dead people are voting.
Ballot harvesting.
Yes. We know
a bill
all
in the
of
state.
this. In the district lines that get rewritten every single year in major metropolitan areas that keep absorbing and holding on to that control would be gone if we required citizenship for the census.
10%, roughly 10% of the land of the state of California is occupied in a high-density area, primarily by leftists, and the other 90% or 80% of the state of California, as far as this would go under mob rule, all those people could go straight to hell. Whatever decisions are made are going to come out of two places, San Francisco and Los Angeles. That's it. Kind of to Sacramento, too, because
I know
nature.
We're over. But Dan Butcher said, yep, and also lowering the age to 16. Yeah, because now you get rid of the Electoral College and you have all these high school kids who, by the way, have never had a job, never done anything. And if you think about what you were doing in high school at the age of 16, do you really think you should be able to push the course of this country into a different direction?
Well, what are the consequences?
I've actually said it should be maybe 22.
Oh, hell yeah, at least 21.
I'm not even kidding.
What consequences are a 16-year-old going to suffer for making a
Nothing.
series of fucked up votes?
Nothing.
But they're living at home with mommy and daddy.
I put it on my Facebook the other day, something like, look, the Democrats are pushing mob rule, reparations, which is just redistribution of wealth, and it's also buying votes.
Thank you. They're posting reparations now because of Brexit, and they got to try to get the American black back because they're losing them.
And there was something else I put, but essentially I'm like, this is socialism, borderline communism at this point. Because once you get rid of that representation on a federal level, that equal representation on the federal level, you've now taken power away from the average voter. More so, mob rule does not give the average voter more power. All it means is that the mob can be bought differently. You can't buy the Electoral College. You just can't buy it. It's impossible. And just to sum up, 2016, as Danny Butcher said, the Electoral College did precisely as it was intended. 100% right. And it's just absolutely crazy. Look, I'll tell you right now, if we lose the Electoral College at any point in this country, the country's gone.
Yes, and just as I indicated, the only presidencies that were overturned or decided by the Electoral College, 5. 5 of the presidential elections. What the Democrats object to is 2 of them. So they're willing to turn everything fucking upside down.
Nuclear option.
Because they don't like Bush and they don't like Trump.
Harry Reid, this is the prime example though, right? when you talk about going nuclear with the bill in the Senate, all the Democrats go absolutely crazy right now. And it's like, look, who set this precedent?
Yes, who opened that door?
It wasn't us.
We're just walking through.
And they haven't used it to the credit most of the time. There's sometimes I wish they had, but most of the time, look, they haven't used the nuclear option because, I mean, they haven't really needed to, but B, it's a shitty option to have there. It shouldn't have existed. It shouldn't have started. But now that it's there, there's a reason it's called nuclear, right? It's a deterrent. You only use it when you absolutely have to. And now is not the time. But this is exactly what the Democrats do. They will piss their pants and stomp their feet and be mad about this one issue, which is why so many of them are single issue fucking voters. Single fucking issue. Most of them. If you took anything to do with women's rights, quote unquote, off the ballot, right? Roe versus Wade, abortion, whatever. If you were able to solve that puzzle to people and say, no, you can't say that just because legalized abortion is being dealt with, that women will lose their medical coverage. If you could make that disappear and have it not be an issue, you would probably gain 30% more female voters in this country.
Yeah.
And think about that.
Yeah.
Single issue voters will kill this country as well. It's one of the other things that drive me absolutely crazy.
Well,
I'm sorry, I know we're over time.
As everybody likes to say, we're a democracy.
Not a democracy.
We are
constitutional republic.
We are a constitutionally federated republic.
Yep.
I learned that from Dr. Michael Jones, who I have on the program, and I want to get back for next Thursday because I want him to weigh in on the Electoral College, people voting over 16, etc. You know, how many morons would you trust with a gun at 16? Not many.
Not many. And you know the ones that you usually would trust are the ones that needed it because they were out in a farm.
Exactly. They grew up in an atmosphere where they had to learn sacrifice, discipline, blah, blah,
have
blah.
to go out and shoot a coyote to protect the flock or maybe put an animal down from suffering. Those are the ones trust with it because they know what they're doing.
Oh, the places we could go on this.
Yes, unfortunately.
And with that, I have to go here.
Thank you, sir.
Oh, don't go anywhere. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, even you 16-year-olds, children of all ages, even you 16-year-olds, thanks for listening to the Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon, live and direct right here on the SHR Media Network. You want to contact me? You can find me on Twitter at bzep and my blog, bloviatingzeppelin.net. Thanks to Redcon 1 for simulcasting my show. Promotional consideration is by the Lockheed Martin Skunk Works and also by the Boeing Company. If it ain't Boeing, I ain't going. And also Pratt & Whitney Engines Thrust. You can trust. My tiaras are by My Little Pony. Everyone expects this to occur. I will be concerting my personal KC-135 Kettle 1 refueling team in less than an hour. Thanks for listening live. Thanks to Alan Thomas for being here in the first hour. Thanks to Sackhead Sean right there for being here tonight.
My pleasure.
Thanks for being in chat, folks. Thanks for listening in podcast. I appreciate each and every one of you. It's Thursday night. Not going to see you until Tuesday, I should say. So have a great weekend. God bless. Take care. Be safe.
Everybody quiet down now and get some sleep.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, Mama. Good night, Ben.
Good night, everyone. Good night, Mama. Good night, Daddy.
Good night, children.
Good night, Daddy. Good night, Elizabeth.
Good night, John Boy. Good night, Jim Bob. Good night, Jim Bob.
Good night, Jim Bob.
What's going on? I was asleep. What's everybody doing?
Good night.
Good night, Jim Bob.
Good night, and good luck.